So the post-midterm Trump continues to fly beneath the radar of everyone in the commentariat except your genial host and me. Actually, those are both me, so I'm the only one who's noticed. But since the midterm, Trump, I think, has come to understand that his obstreperous style, at its most obstreperous, while exciting his base, is not widening his support, which he's going to need to do if he means to win in 2020. So since November, he's been less Trumpy, less combative, more presidential and on point. And if you don't believe me, just think how long it's been since he sent out some really crazy tweet like calling Kim Jong-un horseface or saying the nuclear threat from Stormy Daniels is over, or vice versa. But the news media won't see this change because that would mean letting go of some of their hatred and outrage. And that would mean abandoning their support of the Democrat Party, which they exist to serve. So in effect, Trump has left them stewing in their own hatred without him, which means there's less Trump, but just as much rage and hate, which is giving the undecided public a chance to see that Trump's enemies don't just hate him, they hate the rest of us too, and capitalism, and freedom, and little babies, and the American way. They keep on screaming Orange Man bad, but right now, Orange Man is quietly outwitting them. So Donald Trump is off to Hanoi. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about the way he's changed and the way he has got the left just exposed because he's withdrawn himself a little bit and given them more rope and more space in which to both hang themselves and make themselves look like idiots while they're doing it. He's off to Hanoi. He's dealing with crazy man Kim Jong-un, his second summit with the guy. And here he is yesterday, or yes, the day before yesterday, he's meeting with the governors just before he left, and he's touting the trip.
We're going to accomplish a lot. It's going to be a very good meeting. Tremendous things are happening for our country. I'm now, right after this meeting, I leave for Vietnam, where I meet with Chairman Kim, and we talk about something that, frankly, he never spoke to anybody about, but we're speaking aloud, and I think we can have a very good summit. I think we'll have a very tremendous summit. We want denuclearization, and I think he'll have a country that will set a lot of records for speed in terms of an economy.
Okay, so Trump talking like Trump, right? It's going to be huge. It's going to be tremendous. It's going to be greatest. No one's ever done it before. He's Kim Jong-un. If he just give up his nuclear weapons, his country would come back and really set a lot of speeds, record speeds. Always talking in superlatives and hyperbole. That's Trump. But what he's not been doing is he hasn't been focused on the Russian investigation. He hasn't been going after the press every 2 seconds. You know, he's still doing all that stuff. He's just toned it back a little. Now, listen to CNN with Princeton professor Julian Salazar. I'll set this up by saying that tomorrow, I think it is, tomorrow, Michael Cohen is going to go testify before Congress, and there are all these articles saying, oh, he's going to bring proof that Trump has done illegal things while in office. I have no idea what that could possibly mean, but that's what they're all excited about. Here is a CNN guy, I don't know who this is, interviewing this Princeton history professor, Julian Salazar, about Trump's trip to his summit with Kim Jong-un.
Both the process and the timing are of utmost importance here. Look at the process the president went through, or lack thereof, with pulling the troops out of Syria. There was no process. The timing this time around is just as he's meeting with Kim Jong-un, Michael Cohen is on Capitol Hill. He has 2 private meetings and 1 public testimony on Capitol Hill. How could that impact the negotiations we see in North Korea? What could we see the president give away? You mentioned, of course, ending the Korean War. Could it be troops, and how could this impact?
Well, the fear is that he gets into a bad agreement to make big news and hopefully, in his mind, distract the public from what Michael Cohen is saying or what else is going on in the investigation. And you could end up with a historic turning point where North Korea gets a lot of what it's looking for, international standing, new kind of diplomatic stature, because the president's worried about an investigation without denuclearization. So that's what a lot of national security experts are worried about.
So it's the only reason the president of the United States might go and negotiate with the head of North Korea, this rogue state that's building nuclear weapons, is to distract you from Michael Cohen's testimony. That's why. This thing has been set up for weeks and weeks. Michael Cohen's testimony is only a recent development, but this is the commentary on CNN. And always listen when journalists or commentators are talking in the passive voice. The fear is that Trump will distract people, will give Kim Jong-un all this stuff, all these concessions to take people's minds off this testimony. I mean, it's absurd. It is absurd. This is a guy from Princeton. This is a professor from Princeton talking about this. And he says, this is the thing that the fear is, this is the thing that security experts are working on. If I had been interviewing him, I would have said, name one. Name a security expert who has brought that up. as a fear. So that's the way they're doing it. And they're so excited about, they're so excited about this, but at the same time, about Michael Cohen, but at the same time, they're waiting for the Mueller report, which it sounds like it might come in soon. I mean, there's been kind of these rumblings, but there's been a lot of that before. It sounds like it might come in. So now they're talking about, we want to get our hands on this report. And Rod Rosenstein from the Justice Department has pointed out that it's not always the right thing to do to release a report if there are no criminal charges brought. Here's Rosenstein.
The Department of Justice is best served when people are confident that we're going to operate, when we're investigating American citizens in particular, we're going to do it with appropriate sensitivity to the rights of uncharged people. And as I mentioned in my remarks, when we charge somebody with a violation, we need to be prepared to prove it by evidence beyond any reasonable doubt. And the guidance I always gave my prosecutors and the agents that I worked with during my tenure on the front lines in law enforcement were, if we aren't prepared to prove our case beyond a reasonable doubt in court, then we have no business making allegations against American citizens.
All right, so this is a little bit of a tangent I'm going off on, but I'm just trying to show you that this is what they're waiting for. Trump is off in this major summit. It's an important summit. What they're talking about is this. And Adam Schiff, that Rod Rosenstein was making a good point. When there's a grand jury and they're investigating you, and they say, did you do this crime? And they find out, no, you didn't do this crime. Maybe things came out about your life in this grand jury investigation that you don't want people known. It's not fair. It's not fair if you are not a criminal person for them to release that grand jury report. That's why grand jury reports are secret. So you don't get burned if you're not going to be charged with anything. That's what he's saying the way Trump should be. No, says Adam Schiff, McCarthyite smear merchant who has been making these completely unfounded remarks and charges against Trump since the very beginning. He has said, I've seen evidence that there was collusion. It's way beyond circumstantial. He has never been asked by the press, not once, to produce any of this because he can't produce it because it ain't there. And now he's saying if the Mueller report comes out and isn't released, he says he will subpoena Mueller to testify and say what's in the report.
If you take the position, and I think it's a flawed one, but if you take the position that the president cannot be indicted, and the only remedy for improper, illegal, or other conduct is impeachment, then you cannot withhold that information from Congress, or essentially the president has immunity. So that cannot be allowed to be the case. Bill Barr has committed in his testimony to making as much of the report public as he can, and the regulations allow him to make it all public, and we're going to insist on it becoming public. And more than that, George, we're going to insist on the underlying evidence, because there is certain evidence that is only in the hands of the Department of Justice that we can't get any other way. There were searches conducted, for example, of Roger Stone and Paul Manafort. There's no other way to get the information that was seized except through the department, and we can't tell the country fully what happened without it.
So as the Russian fantasy draws to a close, there's complete nonsense about Russian collusion, which isn't even a crime. And they're starting to realize, this is going to expose the fact that this was all a fantasy. We wasted all this money, wasted all this innocent people, not innocent people, but people were caught up in this and indicted who wouldn't have been indicted if they hadn't committed the crime of being in support of Donald Trump. That's the only reason they were caught. It's the only reason the long arm of the law went after them. But they are not, the Democrats are not going to let this go. But now it becomes, all along people have been saying Trump would be doing a good job if he just wouldn't tweet so much. He's taken that advice, but because they haven't noticed it, they're still out there. It's like the curtain has gone up behind them, and now we see that they're just going to keep these investigations alive for the sake of persecuting a president that they despise. That's why they're doing it. It has nothing to do with the good of the American people or the job they should be doing. He's in Korea. Now, here is from The Guardian, right? Socialist newspaper, William M. Arkin, who is a reporter with impeccable left-wing credentials, writes for the Washington Post, the LA Times, but he's also a good journalist. He does a good job. He's talking about what Trump has accomplished in this in his first summit with Kim, which people made fun of because afterwards Trump tweeted, the threat of nuclear war, the nuclear threat from Kim is over, from North Korea is over. So that wasn't true, but a lot of things did happen. Here is this essentially left-wing journalist, and he's talking about why. He says, no one quite knows why Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, slowed its public and overt testing, because they haven't done these nuclear tests that were driving everybody crazy before, where they'd shoot rockets over Japan and things like that since the last summit. No one knows, nor why Donald Trump's bluntness and boasting that his nuclear button was bigger seems to have worked. This is a left-winger, right? This is The Guardian. But consider this. Trump largely inherited practices initiated in the Obama years. You always know when they say Trump's doing something Obama did, that he's getting it right and they can't stand it. Military moves that were meant to threaten and coerce North Korea in light of its diplomatic failures into this near autonomous skid towards conflict blundered Mr. Trump, right? It wasn't his style. It was just he blundered into it. It did look grim for a few months, the two threatening strikes on each other, missiles flying, and speculation even emerging that the United States might move nuclear weapons back into South Korean soil. Say what you will about Trump, but after some very bad years of active nuclear testing and missile shooting, disarmament on the Korean peninsula has already occurred. Things are quieter, and two leaders who previously weren't talking ever now are. So this is, the Japanese and South Korea are nominating Trump for a Nobel Prize. That'll never happen. But this is pretty much what Mike Pompeo said. He was talking to Jake Tapper. And this is basically his claim for what Trump has done. This is cut number 3.
We started when the Obama administration had a policy which was essentially test, pray, and cower, right? Let them test missiles, let them test nuclear weapons, pray they stop, and cower when the North Koreans made a threat.
Well, they did sanction also.
Not remotely what this administration has done. And they didn't build out a coalition, an enormous global coalition we built out through the United Nations to put that pressure in place to allow us to begin to have what have been real negotiations over the past now 6 or 7 months. I am hopeful that when President Trump and Chairman Kim get together, they'll make a big step towards realizing what Chairman Kim promised. He promised he'd denuclearize. We hope he'll make a big step towards that in the week ahead.
So what would a big step be? What's the kind of pledge that they need to do? Last summit, it was nice, and the remains of U.S. Service members were brought back to the United States, but there wasn't any concrete step in terms of denuclearization.
I concur. Look, we've got work to do on the denuclearization pillar. We got remains back. We've had testing stopped. Those are all good things. Tension along the border is reduced. If you ask the military leaders, frankly, on both sides, from South Korea and North Korea, tensions are reduced.
The things have happened, right? It's true. They haven't done a thing, and all the our intelligence agencies are saying that he'll never get rid of his nuclear weapons. We don't know that, but that's what they're saying. But tensions have been reduced, and they're talking all good things as long as Trump. People are worried Trump's going to give stuff away, but let's see. We'll see what he does. Now Pompeo basically talks about this tweet. This tweet after the last summit, when Trump said the nuclear threat is over, and Tapper starts to grill him about it, which, by the way, I'm not hitting Tapper on. It's perfectly fair. It was a silly tweet, and it's the right thing to do as a journalist to grill him on it. But listen to the exchange.
We do know the history. We know the history of the North Koreans making promises, making commitments, lying, taking American money when President Clinton said, we've got this resolved back in 1994. This administration's not going to do that. We have charted a different path. Frankly, we've been criticized for taking that path, where we work, we negotiate, and then the two people who can actually effectuate the denuclearization of North Korea and a brighter future for the North Korean people will gather for a second time. We have economic sanctions in place. We know the standard for relieving those sanctions, and I'm very hopeful that we'll make a substantial step towards achieving the full denuclearization in a verifiable way in North Korea. The South Koreans, the Japanese have been great partners in this, and we're very hopeful we can get a good outcome.
Do you think North Korea remains a nuclear threat?
Yes.
But the president said he doesn't.
It's not what he said. I know precisely.
He tweeted that there is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea.
Right. What he said is that the efforts that had been made in Singapore, this commitment that Chairman Kim made, have substantially taken down the risk to the American people. It's the mission of the Secretary of State and the President of the United States to keep American people secure. We're aiming to achieve that.
Okay. That's just a direct quote, but I want to move on.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't want to move on. I'm not hitting Tapper. He did the right thing. But all I'm saying is they haven't noticed that those tweets have not been forthcoming. Name the latest one. They'll come again. I'm not saying Trump has that much discipline or that much control, but he does have this strategy that he has been using since the midterms of cutting it back a little bit and letting his actions speak for him and letting the left go out there and make the fools of themselves. They've been making of themselves with their leftism. You can hear the press worrying about it. Yeah. I got one more example that I have to give because it's so amazing. Trump's administration is continuing the Obama policy of advocating in favor of decriminalizing homosexuality around the world. All right. This has been thing that Obama was doing, but now he's got ambassador to Germany, Richard Grenell, who's openly gay. I think Trump calls him my beautiful ambassador. I think that's what he calls him, Richard Grenell. And he is in charge of this. He's heading this push to decriminalize homosexuality around the world. The gay community, or that's not true, the gay activist community, the gay leftist community, the identity gay community, let's not tag all gays with being leftist, with being a part of this, but these active gay leftists, right, they're against it. They are against it. So help me. They hate Trump so much. They're against it. Here's Out Magazine, a gay magazine. You got to listen to this. I can't pass over this. The Trump administration is set to launch a global campaign to decriminalize homosexuality in dozens of nations where anti-gay laws are still on the books. What's the next line in Out Magazine? Hooray? No, no, no. On its surface, the move looks like an atypically benevolent decision by the Trump administration. The details of the campaign belie a different story, which is bad grammar. But anyway, the details of the campaign, he means to say, tell a different story. Rather than actually being about helping queer people around the world, the campaign looks more like another instance of the right using queer people as a pawn to amass power and enact its own agenda. I know that's what I do. I use those gay people. I say, here's a gay person, and now I have power because I was nice to a gay person. The most telling, this is unbelievable. The most telling detail of the report is that Trump's plans center on homophobic violence in Iran, who NBC News calls the administration's top geopolitical foe, the plan where they also hang homosexuals. They hang you for being gay. It's not a question of like, can you get married? It's a question of, can you live? No. Okay, that's what happens in Iran. All right, so they say homosexuality has been illegal in Iran since the theocratic 1979 Islamic Revolution, and by at least one Guardian account since the exit of President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in 2013, enforcement of anti-gay laws has softened somewhat. They just hanged the guy for this. It's not true. So what they're saying is this is colonialism. This is colonialism. It's just forcing, it's anti-Muslim colonialism. And they say it's just like after the shooting in the Pulse gay bar in Orlando, Florida. It says after that deadly shooting, Trump used the 49 deaths as a way to galvanize support for an anti-Muslim agenda rather than find a way to support gay people in pushing for immigration restrictions and a Muslim ban. In other words, we have to defend these lovely people in Iran, the chief state sponsor of terrorism on earth, who hang gay people. We'd rather defend them than defend Trump. And let me tell you something. It's not just Trump. I know I keep saying this, but it's not just Trump. It is everything that Trump represents and everyone who supports him. These are the people they hate. I got to play this one last clip of Bill Maher. We have a guest coming up, but just before that, Bill Maher talking about the red states. He's quoting that thing that I have played a number of times of Hillary Clinton saying, I won all the good places. I won the nice places where people are good. It was the people who don't like black people that I lost to. And Bill Maher says, that's exactly right. Listen to this.
The blue parts of America are having a big prosperity party, while that big sea of red feels like their invitation got lost in the mail. And they still use the mail. They turn on the TV and all the shows take place in a few hip cities. There's no Real Housewives of Toledo or CSI Lubbock. There are no red carpets in Wyoming, and no one ever asks you, who are you wearing? Because the answer is always Target. There are two Americas, and it seems like one is where all the cool jobs are, where people drive Teslas and eat artisanal ice cream. We have orchestras and theater districts and world-class shopping. We have Chef Wolfgang Puck. They have Chef Boyardee.
That's it right there. That is it. That's everything right there. It's like they tell themselves they're cool. They make movies about themselves. They make television shows about themselves. And they say, look how cool we are because all these movies are made about us. But it's them making the movies about themselves. I've been all across this country. People out in the middle of this country are far, far cooler than Bill Maher every single day. But the thing is, you can't love freedom if you don't love the people who are going to be free. You can't love freedom if you don't love the people who are going to be free. And that is the whole problem. It's not Trump. It is not Trump. The orange man is bad because you're bad.